Let's face it, the United States is an empire. If not politically or militarily, then definitely influentially. And to be honest, like the Roman Empire in its last days, we are fracturing and may soon plunge into 1,000 years of darkness. The United States is at its weakest point in history, and the enemies of America know this. Joe Biden and the deep state have completely sacked the military and political sectors of this once beautiful nation. More and more stories of degradation come to light. World War III has pretty much already begun. We are essentially at war with Russia by supporting Ukraine in pretty much every way except for boots on the ground. And China is threatening the United States if we intervene in Taiwan. The only question that remains is that will the United States be able to hold it together? May God help us. This is the Crossworks Media Podcast. So, the first story that I'm going to be bringing up this is from the Japan Times. It's only a matter of time. Warnings of China and U.S. military miscalculations grow. So, in recent news and in recent historical events, I'll say, the divide or the conflict between the United States and China, which has always kind of been more in like the financial areas, you could say.
It's kind of like a Cold War.
Yeah,
Cold War II.
But in like a financial way, like for who can have the most industrial power, I guess you could say. So, at the end of the day,
But also influence.
Right. But the United States and China are enemies in ideological ways. So China is obviously a communist,
complete totalitarian state.
Right, in a pseudo like half communism, half capitalism market. That's why they're so successful.
They had to become capitalist because their economy was failing under communism.
Yeah, under Mao Zedong, people were starving to death. So when they opened up into kind of not democratic, but a capitalistic society where it's like half owned by the state. But anyways, so the current situation is that Taiwan is the democratic government of China from back in World War II.
With Chiang Kai-shek?
Yes. So that's the government, the historical government of China. And the Communist Party took them over and they fled to Taiwan. So technically, you could say that Taiwan is the rightful heir to China, essentially.
Yeah.
So
it's the true, if you look at Chinese, the dynasty.
Right. So, but what Communist China, we'll say Beijing, wants to do is they want to go into Taiwan because Taiwan has been, going against China apparently, and they want to take it over. Well, they have the largest semiconductor chips, right?
Yep, they are the top manufacturer in the entire world. Most of the stuff we get is from there.
Right. So
the second is South Korea.
Right. So the thing is, and South Korea is right on the border of North Korea and China.
Yeah.
China borders North Korea. So this is a huge political and financial. What is it? No, it's not financial. What is it called? Like industrial interest in this area compared to Ukraine, anyways. Like if China takes over Taiwan, they will control the whole entire essentially semiconductor output in the world.
The market, yeah.
They'll be able to force us to our knees over these little chips, and people will be like, "Oh, is it worth starting a world war over this?" I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily think so, but like this is a bigger deal than Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine doesn't really have anything that we depend on. We depend on.
I don't know. You can't. When you say we, you got to think about all the politicians that laundered money over there.
Joe Biden, is that you? Hunter? Anyways, so.
Now Hunter's in the corner smoking crack. Right?
Poor dude. Anyways, so there's a huge geopolitical interest in protecting Taiwan. So Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, I guess, do not like her at all, but she was planning on going to Taiwan. And I can commend her for that. That's kind of a brave thing to do. She'd be the highest ranking U.S. politician to go over to Taiwan since, I think, 1994. But I guess China is not having it. So Nancy Pelosi goes to China. So she hasn't gone yet, but like the Pentagon is coming out saying that they're willing to prepare or defend, essentially, Nancy Pelosi if they do anything stupid. And they sent like a whole entire, carrier strike group through the South China Sea. So you have people like the New York Times saying Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan is too dangerous. And Xi Jinping essentially said something to Mr. Biden, President Biden, about how if you play with fire, you're going to get burned if they send Nancy Pelosi over. So that's kind of the whole entire situation that's going over there in the West. And I really do believe that once China invades Taiwan, and they will be, and let's be honest, they have no other choice. If they're going to start or kick off a World War III, now is the time. Joe Biden is the most incompetent president we've ever had, ever. If you look at that video, Clayton, of him the other day where he's just staring with his eyes wide open and he's talking to the camera and he looks like he's on some sort of drugs to keep him propped up. And then there was another video where after every sentence he ends, there's a jump cut because the guy can't speak for more than 20 seconds. Xi Jinping is looking at this and being like, you know what? The U.S. is at its weakest point right now. So I truly believe that China will be invading Taiwan within the next 2 years, because if they don't, if Trump gets in, he was saying allegedly that he told Xi Jinping if, he invades Taiwan, he'll nuke Beijing.
No, he told that to
Putin.
To Putin.
He said, yeah.
No, he told Putin, because Putin was talking about Ukraine and stuff, and he allegedly told Putin that if you invade Ukraine, all those beautiful towers in the Kremlin will all be blown up.
I know, that guy is, and they're like thinking, you know what,
Trump's this guy's so crazy, he might actually do it.
So, this kind of brings us into what the topic of today's podcast is going to be about.
Is America actually able to stop China?
Are we able to fight a war, even a geopolitical war, not even necessarily a shooting war, but that's what we're going to talk about, is a shooting war. But I don't even think we can do it geopolitically because we're so divided. So if you look at what's going on, we're in Ukraine, essentially. We're giving so many supplies. We gave them so many Javelin anti-tank missiles that they don't, to replenish our stocks of Javelin anti-tank missiles, it's going to take them till 2026 to be able to replenish them. And guess what all those highly electrical, modern weapons use? Semiconductor chips. So another thing too is Joe Biden is sacking our strategic oil reserve. How are we going to be able to fight a war? On two fronts. Okay, so I have an article here about how the U.S. military needs a lot more recruits. They say that increasing the number of young Americans willing and able to serve should be a national priority. So the withdrawal of the U.S. troops from Afghanistan signals the end of a war that involved close to 800,000 American service members. Defending against new threats will require the U.S. to replenish its all-volunteer force with fresh recruits. The U.S. currently has 1.3 million active duty service members. Due to attrition and retirement, the military needs to find 150,000 new recruits every year to meet its overall strength goal in 2020. To meet their end strength goal, period. In 2020, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines all hit their annual recruitment goals, but those figures were distorted by a historically weak job market as active duty service members delayed plans to re-enter the civilian sector, reducing the need for new hires. Last year's target of 61,000 new Army enlistees, for instance, was 20% lower than 2018, when the Army failed to meet its goal. So, apparently, 70% of Americans between 17 and 24 are ineligible for military service due to obesity, mental health issues, past drug use, criminal records, or lack of a high school degree. Overall, only 13% of Americans are currently eligible to join the military. We are a weak nation. We're a weak nation physically, we're a weak nation spiritually, we're a weak nation motivationally. Okay? People don't want to join the military under Joe Biden. Would you want to join the military under Joe Biden?
Heck no.
No, the stupid Navy can't even figure out what kind of pronouns they want to do. Okay, nobody wants to join this. Nobody's proud to be an American anymore. You know, they demonize nationalism. They act like it's the worst thing in the world to be proud of your country, and it's sick. It's depressing. So we're fracturing left and right. We have people coming into our borders left and right. We don't even have a nation anymore. And like I said, it's like the Roman Empire. It's fracturing within. Do you have any ties that you could, like, why did the Roman Empire fall?
You're going to let me speak now?
Yeah, sorry.
11 minutes straight of talking.
That was 11 minutes?
Yes, I haven't been said a thing yet. But, yeah, so when you look at, exactly, that's what I've been saying. When you look at why the Roman Empire fell, once it started getting around 400 through really late 300s AD. By that point, it was kind of split up into the Western and Eastern. But so they started overreaching their power into like many different, like really in the Far East in Anatolia, which is kind of like where Turkey is, and because they just obviously with that empire mindset, you just constantly want to take over more and more. And so they just kept overreaching their power. Well, they could never take over Anatolia because they had all the like this, whatchamacallit, like the bow archers and stuff like that, the plains people and stuff like that, all on horses, and they would just get destroyed. And they constantly tried to take over Parthia and stuff like that, but always got pushed back. And eventually their own borders up in like near Gaul and Germania got so weak around the Danube that Germans and stuff just started flooding through, mass immigration problems, because even the Franks and stuff like that, Gauls started, like, obviously there was infighting amongst them. The Germans started taking over Gaul, and so they started like just storming into Rome.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like us, we have a mass immigration policy right now. They couldn't take care of everyone, because as soon as you take an economy and you take a bunch of poor immigrants that are coming here, you can't handle that. And that's why New York and stuff like that are all getting so pissed right now, because they're so for illegal immigration until they start feeling the effects of it themselves. Like the mayor, Eric Adams of New York, is up there whining about because Greg Abbott is busting them up there, which is one of the most bad A things ever.
I know, that's hilarious.
Like, if like, you guys like it so much, here, take it.
Yep.
DC, the same guy, whoever is the head of DC, I don't know that one.
The mayor or whatever.
Yeah. Whoever he is, he's also whining about it because Greg Abbott is also sending people up there as well. And they love their policies so much until they actually start to feel the effects of it. And now he's all about, that Eric Adams guy was literally saying, I believe in immigration, but now that they're coming here and affecting my community, and it's like, yeah, how do you think the people all in the southern border feel?
Yeah.
So Rome was feeling that exact same way. And then not just that, but then obviously once you have all those people, you got to figure out a way how to take care of all those people. There's not enough land for all that. And then you look at the government of Rome, and they had some of the most corrupt politicians ever. That's all in it for themselves. Pelosi.
That sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, Pelosi, Biden. But yeah, they had some of the most corrupt politicians. The the wealth, like, inequality of Rome was insane.
Yeah.
And just like in America with COVID, that was like one of the biggest like wealth, what is it called, like
shifts of
wealth in like ever in like American history. Like
the rich got
rich got so much richer, and the poor got so much poorer,
and the poor got poorer.
Like the middle class is getting decimated right now, especially with all the the stock market collapsing. Because when it comes to the stock market collapsing, the people who have the money that like don't need the money immediately can stay in it and buy more. But like when it comes to the middle class, they need the money, and they get scared, and so they sell. So therefore, when stock markets collapse, the rich always get richer off the stock market. The poor always have to sell and can't, because they can't hold all that money in there. And so, and even when you look at not just the empire fell, because I mean obviously we're an empire, but like when it came to like the Roman Empire, it was like by one
Like a literal
empire, like it was by an emperor. But even when the Roman Republic fell, there was literally like factional fighting in the streets between two different political sides.
Yeah.
Which you look at like the Antifa and stuff like that. They're straight
Proud
up
Boys, yeah.
Proud Boys, like all that fighting in the streets between just gangs of either side. And that eventually tore down the Roman Republic. I mean, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So, I mean...
Yeah, so I have a question. So with Rome, when all these people were coming across their borders, do any of the historians say that there was like a loss of a central idea, I guess you could say? Because before that, obviously Rome, you united under Rome. You united under your people, your cause. So my question is does anyone say anything about that? Like there was a common culture.
Talking about their traditional values.
Right, like their traditional values or their culture. So when you had the Franks and the Gauls and the Visigoths, right?
Yeah.
Coming into the
Ostrogoths.
Right. That. Coming into the country, the empire or republic, either way, you start to split up. You have all these factional differences and there's no common unity anymore. You lose that unity. So I think do you know if that was ever a thing?
They actually blamed Christians for the loss of their traditional values.
Huh. This started to sound like history does repeat itself. Not only rhymes, but repeats. But
because obviously late within the late empire, the Christianity was kind of taking over.
Yeah.
And they blamed Christians for destroying their traditional values, because obviously like Christianity got so big that it just completely took over. Like, you can't look at the way they looked at emperors back then. Was they literally thought of them as gods. Like as soon as Octavian died, Augustus Caesar died,
yep.
They put him up in I think it was the Parthia. They treated him as a god. They worshipped him. And as soon as Christianity comes in, you can't think of your leaders as God anymore. So the emperor started. That's why Nero and stuff hated Christians, because he thought of it as like such a poison to like their power.
Like they're like questioning authority almost.
Yeah. Like you can't think of the emperor as a god anymore. You can question his authority if he's not the ultimate. He's not on the level of gods.
Like you'd almost so Nero would almost think that like because he's in charge, you should listen to him no matter what.
Yeah.
Like what he says goes. Like
yeah.
How in a way, like 1 minute he can say, no, this is what this means. And then the other minute he can just change it and say, he's like, no, it's always meant this way. Like, could he change the definition of something?
When you have ultimate power, you can change words to whatever you want them to mean. And it's just, I can't imagine people in America actually doing that.
Like, if you've ever read the book 1984 or listened to it, like, the doublespeak or doublethink.
Yeah, doublethink.
We've always been at war with
Newspeak.
With Asia, Eurasia or whatever. So do you think, is there anything where maybe modern politics where the government elites, the deep state, do you think they ever change definitions of anything?
I haven't heard anything recently.
No?
No.
Like nothing?
Until this Thursday when we finally announced that we are in a recession.
Oh.
Well, traditionally we would have been in a recession until the Biden administration is trying to change the definition of a recession.
Wait, can I fact check you for a minute right here?
Sure.
Like, no, we're not actually in a recession. Okay, because technically that's correct, but not actually correct.
Yeah, like they were Peter Doocy was just talking to that Karine Jean-Pierre, and he was like saying like, oh, so is the Biden administration trying to change the definition of a recession so you don't have to admit it? And she was like, no, we if you look at the traditional like meaning of a recession, we actually don't go by that. We actually like aren't in that. And then she like pointed to like one of the White House aides who is like the head of like some financial thing. I forgot his name. But
Yeah.
and she was like, yeah, he doesn't define as that. And then Peter Ducey was like, actually, in like 2012,
It's
that
eight.
same, or is it 2008?
Yeah.
That same guy, like the traditional definition of a recession is 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. And she
Yeah.
was like, well, we're just not.
We're not going to answer that question.
We're just not
going
going
to
to talk about that. But
Was there something else that they redefined or something?
there's multiple things.
But recently, within the last week, what was it?
Define a woman. You talking about that?
Well, that too. Then, the definition of marriage now they say is
Yeah, they're trying to redefine the definition of marriage when they try to slam that bill through the House and Senate.
yeah. But I swear there was another thing that was along the lines of that. But let's see. I might be able to pull it up in my notes, but anyways, back to the recession. That's another thing where we're going through a hard time with the recession, and what do people do, or what have people done before? It's not always. What do they do when they go through a recession? Is they go to war. War is good for business. War drives an economy.
Brings people together.
Especially an economy like the United States, where it could manufacture what it needs.
Yeah.
Ukraine right now, it can't do it. But I hope we don't go to
That's
war.
that's the thing is with in fall there's so many reports of people saying that there is a famine coming, and luckily in America it's not, if a famine does come in fall, it's not going to hit us as hard as it will Sri Lanka and places like that. I was just listening to this guy who he's lived in 80 different countries in his life.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he believes that with this famine, because famine creates more famine, fire creates more fire, war makes more war.
Yeah.
So with this famine, it's going to become so bad that he said he wouldn't be surprised if 1 billion people died within the next 5 years, he said.
That's horrible.
Because you think about it, with all this stuff, with all, there's no fertilizer, with what is that? Where's that all? The Dutch, Netherlands. Yeah. That is the second greatest agriculture exporter in the world, that tiny little nation, and their government and stuff and courts are ordering them to stop farming.
But do you think it's actually going to work? I mean, people are going to get sick and tired of being freaking sick and tired.
I we'll see. I mean, if you had to define who our enemies are right now, our top 2 enemies, who would you say? China
and Russia,
and the World Economic Forum, maybe.
I mean, I guess. But so my thing is
because you think about that, all those World Economic shrills that are all just political plants, in the Netherlands, in Sri Lanka, that guy was a political plant. He was a part of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
And they were, before he got in, they were actually a really rising economy. And then he goes in, and now look at them. They go storm the palace and everything and throw the guy out because they're so starving over there.
Well, that's the thing, is when people get starving, regimes collapse.
Yeah.
So obviously the United States, if a famine happens, I don't think the United States will be affected unless
Not nearly as much as the third world countries.
Unless some disaster happens where it wipes out our production too, and it may as well. It may happen, and if God wills it to punish the world for their sinfulness, possibly. I don't know. But I think I was wondering earlier today if all this rising gas prices, everything, is because in this food shortage, all stuff is to prepare us for a war. You know?
I don't think so. I honestly believe that it's all because all our elites and the experts are all idiots. I honestly think so. You know how to make the poor man starve? Drive energy prices up. When energy prices go up, energy means work. Work means food.
Yeah.
So when you drive energy up, work gets harder to do, which means you get less food. If you really care about the poor, you will make sure energy prices are low. And all this new climate change stuff is all, high gas prices actually mean it's a good thing. This guy in Canada just was saying $4. No, it was $4.80 a gallon is really good because it reminds Canadians how bad or how devastating our climate change is right now. They actually they love that our gas prices are so high right now. they their whole thing is to make energy so expensive so that we have to get off it. Like over in Germany right now, they're going back to coal.
Yep.
Because they're trying to get energy.
Coal-fired plants, yeah.
Germans are gathering firewood right now because they're expecting it to be a very, very cold winter.
It gets cold there.
If Germany collapses, the EU is over.
Yeah, Germany is the economic powerhouse of the European Union. What other country compares? The United Kingdom pulled out. Brexit. So Germany's holding the whole European Union up.
Yes.
So when hard times happen, war happens. Because people have nothing to lose. And I don't know. And part of this is free market capitalism has, in a way, caused this. Because, you know, everything is about to just gain or make more money. To make more money or become more powerful. This is no different than, if you look at the rich people of the world, they really, truly run the world, okay? And occasionally you get a good leader in there, like Trump, who doesn't care and will just stiff it to the rich. And I'm talking about the uber rich, the rich families, the Klaus Schwabs, like these, like not
Klaus
necessarily
Schwab, he's just such a Bond villain.
Right. So just power hungry people. They don't care if the poor die. They want the poor to die. Okay. And
these are all the people that are saying that we need less people on Earth.
And to them and their twisted minds, they probably think it's a good thing. Like, it's for the best that you die. And these people are sick and they're twisted.
Yeah, in order to make a couple omelet, in order to make an omelet, you got to crack a couple eggs.
But you know what? I think we can just take solace in that God's hand will judge them someday too. And so that's a good thing anyways, is that evil people will have what's coming to them at the end of life. But it's just sometimes you wish that there would be a government that actually worked by and for the people. There's never a perfect government. There's never a perfect system. It can't happen. Like, obviously the United States ran good for a long time, but I mean, look at it. Could we expect any other way for the United States to turn out? Obviously not. This is what happens to empires and nations. And it's kind of sad.
It's pretty sad.
It's very sad.
And you can trace this back to communism, dude.
Yep.
You go look at after, like, the communists were just so good at infiltrating America because with freedom, it's so easy to infiltrate places that have a lot of freedom, you know.
Yep.
You know, with Soviet Union, it's a lot harder because, you know, they're so totalitarian. But they just all their poisonous ideas just permeated. There's this Frankfurt School and stuff like that where so many like communist ideologues and stuff came out of, and like all this like political correctness and stuff and prejudice and stuff all came out of, and like the whole thing of like political correctness is like, you know, when you think about it's like I think it was in Russia or something like that. Someone in Russia or Soviet Union explained it to like an American one time, and they were like, you know, they were told by like a government official, but like, yes, you may be factually correct, but you're not politically correct. You know, a fact can be correct, but if it goes against the party, then it's not politically correct. You know, like politically correct actually means incorrect. Like all these things, and like it's so entrenched itself in the political system now that we just use straight up communist words, and it's like the normal everyday lingo that we use, like, and it's just when you look at even our language, there's this thing called the euphemism treadmill. Yeah. And it basically means like, you know, there's a word for like homeless people, which back then was like bum. Yeah. And then eventually, you know, that, you know, they use that, and eventually, oh, that's not nice enough. So now we got to change it to homeless people. Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure nowadays they actually use like, I think it's unhomed or something like that. I've seen people use
disenfranchised.
Yes, disenfranchised. Or like nowadays with criminals, I've seen someone use justice involved person.
Oh my gosh.
So they just destroy our language. They make us use their language. As soon as you use the communist language, then you're over.
Right. And I think too, like, leftism is so powerful and it's so dangerous because at any point we could just create a subgroup of leftism and we'd fit into it. And be like, because now, like, apparently they're going to have, like, the ugly people in the LGBT group. So if you feel, like, bad or
Marginalized.
any marginalized person, there will be a group form. And that's why it's so powerful.
To get high in, like, the liberal, with the liberals, that's all you have to do is just go, okay, like, I don't know, like right now it's all about transing the kids and stuff like that. You just have to go a little more extreme, just start shouting that and like, oh, this is the next thing we're going to fight for.
And you'll be pushed right to the top.
Yeah.
You'll be the leader of the new thing.
Until the next thing comes out and they're like, actually, that thing, wasn't too extreme enough.
And that's what's so dangerous and so powerful about it, because it takes no... It's essentially giving into self-hate, but like self-love at the same time. It's like the love of your evil side of humans. Like we're inherently evil. We have original sin. It's like you have become in love with that original sin and the perversion that we are as humans. And it's just easy. It's human nature to do that. And it's like totally giving in. And it's like in Star Wars, the Sith Lords, when they become Sith Lords, like they turn ugly and they get like weird skin, and just their evil just contorts their body.
It changes their appearance on the outside as well as the inside.
And that's what leftism does to people. I was on Instagram the other day, and there was somebody I recognized. So I clicked on their profile and looked back. A beautiful person, beautiful woman, and she went full woke, and is now like she was like a normal looking woman, hair, beautiful. She got the tattoos, she's got the piercings, cut her hair, dyed it, like rings everywhere, nose rings, and it's just like you're ugly now. You are an ugly person, inside and out. And they promote that. They promote ugliness. They can't have any beauty. And I think
because they're scared of beauty.
And I think most people are beautiful. You know what I'm saying? In a way, like in their own way. People are beautiful. They're God's creation, right? But they want to reject it. They want to just tattoos and God has women to look the way they look, and they have to mess that up, and they don't want to look like that. And men should have long hair and look like women. There's no order in it anymore.
Because they're going against the just basic biology.
You're right.
And then you wonder why America's so screwed when like most of our population is on addicted to porn, addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
They don't have any useful use in their lives. They're all nihilists. They don't think life has a meaning.
And they promote that
exactly
self-degradating activities. Like it's so easy to get stuck into pornography or alcoholism or drugs, and then imagine how much more terrible it is when they start promoting that stuff. Like, no, it's
nothing's
a good
wrong
thing,
with it.
And it's horrible. And you know what? That's the thing with conservatism or right wing, is that you have to go against that. It's a hard life. It's a hard experience. But you know what? It's worth it, because at the end of the day, I love my life in the way that I'm content with who I am. I'm happy with who I am. I know that I'm not a perfect person. But you know what? I'm happy. I have a wife. I have a child. I live a good life. God has blessed me. I'm happy. And you know what? At the end of the day, the leftists are not happy. They're just so full of hate. And that's the biggest divide in America. And that's why there's nothing in common. We have nothing in common with these people. How can we fight a war like World War II on two fronts when we can't even agree on the same things? That's just my opinion. So I think we're so weak. If someone asked a question or I asked a question, who would win in a civil war in the United States? And I say China. China would win. China would come in, swoop, save the day, quote unquote. And if there's not a civil war, that they don't even need to really fight us, because they look at us and there's so much infighting going on.
Let us fight ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I was just listening to this guy, and he was saying that he went over to China and went to like that Rape of Nanjing museum.
Yeah.
And he said that thing was like the most intricate museum he's ever seen. And he said there's just constantly people like in that museum like all the time. And he said there's just so much anti-Japanese hate in that thing. He said they hate the Japanese over in China. Most of their movies, the bad guy is always this like drunk, like rapey Japanese guy and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, it's China's coming, hey.
And you know what? You can't blame them. The Japanese were so horrible to the Chinese people that they have just years and years and years of anger and hate towards Japan, that there's going to be a wrath poured out on Japan. Yeah,
and well, guess what? We're probably not going to be there to be able to save them because we're too busy just being consumed by vice.
Yeah, and plus our airplanes and ships won't have any fuel because guess what? They gave away all our sinking
and selling it to China,
and then releasing it on the
market until November. After once the election's done, then suddenly all the energy prices will go back up right after the election.
So irritating.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
So just get ready for that 1,000 years of darkness, just like the Middle Ages. After
America falls, then oh boy.
Yeah, just like when Rome fell, there was the Middle Ages and Dark Ages.
If America falls, then China will be the next superpower, and I guarantee you do not want the world to be ruled by the superpower who is just a totalitarian communist state. This will be bad. It will be so bad.
It's bad. So go out and vote.
Go out and vote. Live a good life.
This election, this fall, for the midterm election, and the next presidential election are monumental.
History defining.
History was made in 2020 when Joe Biden won. It plunged us into what we are now. And our only hope is that we can get Joe Biden out of there and get in a good, competent leader. So go out and vote. If not, shucks, I don't know.
And rest assured, if this world goes to hell in a handbasket, we have assurance in Jesus Christ. And Amen. I pray that if some of you guys are listening and you guys don't have faith in Christ, it's worth it.
There's a freedom in it.
You have something to look forward to after this life.
A hope.
Life is not meaningless, man. Let's go out and even if you don't believe the Bible is, even atheists. There's some atheists out there that believe the Bible is such a work of art.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, even Jordan Peterson. He's not a Christian yet, but he's working there.
He said yes, most likely, but yeah,
he's working there.
Hopefully, he's not almost persuaded.
Yeah,
like Herod. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and come back in, I think, Monday night for a new episode.
Yeah, and remember, folks, the cross works.